Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show. We are your hosts, Ben and Ethan, and we are excited. We've got some great news for you here about tech at bedtime. So, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. First thing that I've got up for today is the new Rivian R2. Rivian, the other week, announced and unveiled their Rivian R2 series, and it has some pretty cool features that not only excited me, but seemed to excite the public and investors for a couple of days until their stock price started to plummet again. But that's neither here nor there. Um, Nevertheless, with their R2 event that um, they held at the theater, they had the R2 in Austin, Texas, as well for some public show and tells. And this has some pretty cool, unique features. One of them is the dual glove box here. That was one criticism that a lot of consumers have had about the R1S and the R1T is that there's no glove box. So I guess now they're overcompensating, and you've got two, which is really cool. The interior looks pretty fresh for a $45,000 starting vehicle. Still looks, I would say, fairly premium and very competitive in the price range that they're going for. It is going to be a little bit smaller than the R1S, coming in about the size of a Tesla Model Y. And it is going to lack a few of the features. Like, I know it doesn't have a powered opening and closing front trunk, and the air compressor for adaptive air suspension is not going to be in the R2, which will save about 30 grand for this vehicle, which is good. I know it's not like a mainstream thing, but that people want, but it has some it has some pretty cool things. I mean, the crossover SUV is something that America really likes, and I think if they can get this out by their projected date of 2026, it's going to be really good for Rivian. However, I wonder if 2026 is going to be too late. It kind of seems like they needed to get this out yesterday. Ben, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you 100%. I think America loves this size. Um, I think the R1S is great for families or people who go adventuring with a lot of friends or at least a few friends, or they have a lot of gear. And the R1T, very similar. Not everyone wants a truck. And so having this smaller but still utility-based vehicle that's electric, it really checks off a lot of boxes for American consumers. And I can see a lot of people wanting to get this vehicle right away, get their hands on it. I'm with you. I think it's going to be too long. I think 2026, that's 2 years from now, and other electric vehicle makers are going to be competing, if not ahead of the curve. And I feel like I'm a little nervous for them that their technology on this might be a little behind by 2026. We're already seeing rapid change in charging. We're already seeing rapid change in batteries. And I just feel like if they don't make changes as those innovations happen with the development of this vehicle, they're going to be behind. Now, who's to say they might make those changes? I really like this Rivian myself. Um, if this came out next month, I would be very tempted uh, to go through with a purchase because I'm kind of in the market for something like this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I have to wait, if I want to buy this. And I don't know if I want to wait that long. Um, I do think that it's funny that the complaint was like there was a complaint about glove boxes with the first Rivians, and so they put two in. In my mind, I'm like, okay, We don't need two. That's like I saw the announcement of it at the event, and like the crowd just went crazy over two glove boxes. I just had, why are people getting so hyped on two glove boxes? Like, that's not that big of a deal, guys.
I
You
mean, I
probably,
guess the one way to like get hype over something so superfluous is remove it from a product and then reintroduce it in a newer product.
yeah, yeah, you're right, exactly. Because people, people don't realize what they have until they lose it, right? And they miss
Uh-huh.
it, and then that appreciation starts to build. And so when you give it back, there's just all that hype.
Yeah.
Um, so I was a little saddened. I was hoping to see a few more features, but overall, it's a really clean vehicle, and I think it's a pretty fair price point. Um, so I'm excited for the vehicle. I'm just a little bummed about the timeline. I'm actually really disappointed in that. I was hoping for at least 2025,
Yeah.
but that's not going to happen. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like with electric vehicles, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the trend with electric vehicles is there's an announced date and that usually gets pushed back.
Yeah. I mean, Um, I mean, even with Rivian, they announced when the vehicles were going to come out. They were delayed a little bit. Granted, Rivian was the first to have the electric truck come to market. At least they have that first. But I know like their R1S was delayed a little bit because I believe they had plans to have the R1S come out at the same time as the R1T.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, there's already been a bit of delay. I know Rivian right now is losing like 30,000 each time that they sell an R1T and R1S. And so
Whoa.
with those, they're kind of bleeding money with that quite a bit. So I mean, this is really their last chance to get something right and start to make a profit with it. I'm fearful that it's a little too late with the competition with I mean EVs right now are not selling as much as we were used to a couple of years ago, especially like during the pandemic. So it kind of seems like the EV craze is starting to plateau a little bit or even die down. And
Yeah.
so um, if I were an EV maker, I would be a little bit worried about that. You've got to have something a little bit more compelling than just the fact that it's an electric vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you 100% there. I do think that the hype around EVs is starting to become a little jaded because people now have had EVs for a while. They start to see the pros and cons very clearly. Um, Everything on paper doesn't exactly match reality, and and then you also made a really good point. You kind of have to have more than just making an EV in order to be appeasing to the market. And when I mentioned this earlier, that I was a little underwhelmed with some of the feature sets on the RS2, and to me, it kind of just feels like a standard EV. They have like knickknack features like the double glove box and a flashlight in the door, um, but I just feel like I don't feel like it's moving forward. I just feel like it's just matching the current level right now, and it's going to come out 2 years later or
Yeah.
a year and a half later. And to me, that's a little underwhelming. It's a little sad. I do love the vehicle. Like I said, if this was on the market right now, I'd be like, this is a really good option for me.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's a bummer, but we'll see what happens. The interior is awesome. It looks like a great vehicle.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they continue to add some additional features and learn how to optimize their process between now and the time that it's released, I think I think it could still be competitive. Uh, One thing that I find really strange, though, they're finally putting the Tesla NACS port on this to charge your vehicle, which is great. However, they put it on the rear passenger side, and I think that is just a huge oversight and something that they should just match what Tesla does and put it on the rear driver's side.
Yeah, why?
Because I mean, now like if they were to go to a supercharger today with that vehicle, it would still have the same problem of taking up two stalls in order to charge the vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't get that. I just don't understand why that design isn't taken into account when they're, or not that design, but that feature, or the maybe the design of like the charging isn't taken into account when they're building this. Yeah, just that's an oversight in my opinion. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
And everyone's gonna be frustrated with you for taking up two stalls.
Yeah. And maybe they're banking on the fact that hopefully Tesla will um, upgrade all of their um, Tesla superchargers by then. But I, if I were making something, I wouldn't be banking on another company to do something I want. You have to you have to change your product to make it work with what the consumer wants. But
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
that's just one guy's opinion.
Yeah, I feel like probably a lot of the market too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, really cool. Really cool. Hopefully it pans out for Rivian here. And hopefully they don't go bankrupt. Otherwise, then I'll just have a piece of metal in my garage.
all right, well, what's next? What do we
What do
got
you
on the
got
dock?
for us?
All right. Let's see. Let's go with Tik Tok Ban. That's going crazy right now.
Oh, yes.
So the House this last Wednesday passed a bill um, with pretty strong support from both Democratic and Republican side, essentially either shutting down TikTok or if TikTok meets the demands of selling, then they won't shut it down. But when I say shut it down, I mean like ban it from the United States. Um, Essentially, the talk track is that it's a security risk for consumers' data, and it was pushed through the House really fast. And like I said, there was support from both sides, very quickly voted on. It was a very strong vote to support this bill. It was 352 to 65. Actually, I think it was 62 to 64. And then one, I think, was just like, I don't know the phrase like non voting, but I'm not a politician. So I apologize for not understanding or having that phrase on me or the verbiage. But anyway, 352 in support of it, and a lot of backlash from consumers, a lot of backlash from businesses, a lot of backlash from China, and essentially what's happening now is it's going to the Senate, I believe, and that's where we're seeing there's a little bit of a delay. At least I shouldn't say delay. There's a little bit of a slowdown to evaluate this bill. Um, but there's arguments here that the US is essentially being the bad guy of like capitalism and fair trade. And even though the US is usually the strongest spokesperson for fair and free markets. And here we are having the US government saying, hey, there's risk here of data, and that's a national security threat, whether you believe that or not. I'll let the viewers decide, listeners decide. And so they're using that as the reason behind this forceful sale of a business, a very successful business. Um, what are your thoughts here? Do you think this is a actual national security threat? How do you feel like the government's acting here? Is there I don't want to get too tinfoil hat right now, but feel free to express your opinions here.
I I'm kind of on, and maybe it's me just being a little bit naive on this topic, but I kind of think it's a bit of an overreaction. I know there was big concerns, especially when TikTok was coming out, and allegedly that some of those concerns were addressed with it, and now we've got some of those same things coming again. Uh, However, it kind of makes me think that the government is overstepping and wanting to um, try and moderate the the speech or the rhetoric that is being publicized. Um, and I say that because we kind of saw that with how Twitter was, until Elon bought Twitter, it was a lot of like one-sided arguments, and we didn't have a whole lot of seeing the whole picture. And I'm kind of thinking this may be a way of doing the same thing if they were to limit it and ban TikTok. It's a way of the government attempting to control the rhetoric of what goes on um, through social media in the United States. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's kind of ridiculous for the U.S. government to do this. I don't believe that they're really actually concerned about users' data. Um, I don't think there's any strong evidence, if there's any evidence showing that there's a risk or there has been a risk of China getting users' data. TikTok actually, in the article, TikTok even spent $1 billion on making sure that the American user data is handled separately and with a lot more scrutiny than their normal data that they use. Just because in the past this has been an issue, and the reason why I say I think I don't think the government's really concerned about our data is because we've seen US based technology companies abuse our data. Facebook is in so many different lawsuits because of it,
Mhm.
and or Meta, I should say. And the government doesn't do anything with that. If anything, they're buddies, right? We've seen evidence, like it is publicly known, that the government even worked with Twitter and Facebook on advertising and controlling certain uh, types of ads on those social media platforms. And a part of me, this is where my tinfoil hat comes on, but a part of me thinks the US government doesn't like TikTok because they don't have any influence in how the data is used, how the narrative is, the flow and restriction of information. And I just don't think there's enough true threat for the US to be this firm and hard on on TikTok and making them sell. I think it's a political power gain. Republicans and Democrats both gain from this,
Yeah.
and that's what I see. I don't see like the American people gaining anything from it. Um, I don't think there's any extra security. If anything, like I said, in the past, we have seen the government leverage American-based technology companies and manipulate or abuse users' data. I don't think it's going to be any better with TikTok becoming an American company.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. I think the only benefit that would come from this is that you would see a decrease in the amount of time that the average male user spends in the bathroom. That would be that would be the only benefit for this.
you're probably right. You're honestly probably right. And like not to mention, speaking of TikTok, I saw a video on TikTok of just like snapshots of people in the house, like representatives in the house, and just expressing how old they are and I just don't think the older generation understands technology as well. I mean, if you look at the hearings with TikTok CEO, they ask really dumb questions, or questions that they really just don't have a good understanding of.
Mhm.
And like, can can TikTok access the internet if I'm not connected to Wi-Fi or data? And like, just really basic questions, looking for a basic answer when they don't have a good understanding of what it is. And I just think people in our government are too old. I just think they're too old, and they have a lack of understanding of technology. Um, and right now I'm curious, even just off the top of my head, like what's the average age of House of Representative, Senate, House Representative? Let's see. Average age.
I'm gonna say like 50.
No. 58 for
Oh,
Congress, 64 for senators.
oh, geez.
Dude, that's retired. That's retirement age.
Yeah, that's retirement age.
I just don't get it.
Yeah. I I mean,
So
they're way past their prime at that point.
totally, totally, way past their prime.
And really
And
the people that are going to understand this are people that really don't have like a whole lot of experience with that they would want, but they have experience with this because they've lived with it, they've grown up with it, and that should be enough to be able to dictate policy and dictate regulations on how we can effectively do it for for the masses, for the people. You
I
need to
agree.
have people that understand it. I mean, we've kind of seen that um, how the government has taken the stand on AI and not really had that level of understanding enough to make any regulation effective enough for it or anything like that. And it's just because people lack the understanding.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think, and I don't believe they take the time to understand if they have that lack of understanding.
Mhm.
Um, you tell me if this is the same for you, but as I get older, I feel like I get a little bit more hard headed, and I just like don't really care. And I feel like those who have been in their positions for decades, I feel like they get very hard headed and aren't willing to continually learn, or even just people in old age. I just feel like get more and more hard headed and less willing to be like a child. And what I mean by that is a child who's a sponge that's willing to learn. I
Mhm.
feel like it's pretty rare to find older people who are constantly trying to be students, not in like a college term, but or in a college sense, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
students. Um, and I don't know if that's just because, you as we get older, we get more and more tired and we're like, well, I've experienced life. I don't really need to continually try to experience more, learn more, or whatever. But I just can't imagine people at 64 years old or 60 years old wanting to dive deep into these topics and subjects. They're getting very high level summaries from younger generation, and they're really just not understanding the full grasp of it. And that
Mhm.
it's just frustrating to see.
Yeah, and I would agree. I've kind of found that in my old age as well. Like it's it's harder. Like I have the natural tendency to just want to accept what I've already learned in my previous experience and just take that as fact. And so it takes more conscious effort to want to seek out learning about it and trying to understand it a little bit better.
100%. Yep. I agree. And I also believe when you're younger, you're surrounded by other peers who are constantly learning about different subjects, and they share
Mhm.
those things that they're learning. we're like you go to school and everyone's like, you hear about the new app, or you hear about the new trend, or you hear about the new coin, or you hear about this thing that's coming up or whatever. And like, no, I didn't hear about it. Tell me about it. And then everyone's just sharing information. And I don't feel like professionals, when you get into your career and your job, I don't feel like that's happening anymore. Like I don't have, besides the podcast, right? I don't really have a really strong group of people that were constantly sharing things that we're learning about, right?
Yeah.
We learn about things in our specific roles or responsibilities in our life, and that's about it. But when you're growing up and you're younger, you're learning about everything in life and you're just absorbing and then you're sharing, you know?
Hmm.
Um, I just feel like it's a lot more talked about and discussed, and you're learning a lot more when you're younger because so many people are learning different things and you're just teaching each other.
Yeah. I would agree with that. So
Yeah. So, oh,
maybe
sorry.
we
Go
need
ahead.
to start maybe we need to start working with people that are more our age rather than all
Yeah.
these old people.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly. Yeah. It's a little sad to see. I mean, it also scares me. Like, what else could the government hide behind this umbrella of national security risk, you know?
Hmm.
And it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. So we'll see.
Yeah. Guess we'll just have to wait to see um, the next acquisition that Elon Musk has.
That's
So,
right.
so
I think he's still got a couple $1 billion.
yeah, he's got a couple billion. Um, so I think he could handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of Elon Musk and his money and what he plans to do with it, looks like Tesla is going after Cybertruck owners who are selling their new electric pickup trucks for a profit. This is something really interesting that I saw in their purchase agreement. So, one of the things that Tesla has tried to do to prevent their customers from flipping Cybertrucks for profits, they have added a no resale clause in the early VIN Cybertrucks, threatening to sue for up to $50,000 or more, and added that it may not sell any more Teslas to these people who sell their Cybertrucks. And just to get a little bit more into what the clause states, it says you understand and acknowledge that the Cybertruck will be released in limited quantity. You agree that you will not sell or otherwise attempt to sell the vehicle within the first year following your vehicle's delivery date. If you must sell the vehicle within the first year, Tesla agrees that your reasons warrants an exception and its no reseller policy. You agree to notify Tesla in writing and give Tesla reasonable time to purchase the vehicle from you at its sole discretion and at the purchase price listed on your final price sheet, less 25 cents per mile driven. Reasonable wear and tear and the cost to repair the vehicle to Tesla's used vehicle cosmetic and mechanical standards. And if Tesla declines to purchase the vehicle, you may then resell your vehicle to a third party only after receiving written consent from Tesla. And Tesla may seek injunctive relief to prevent the transfer of the title or demand liquidated damages from you in the amount of $50,000 or the value received in consideration for the sale and transfer, whichever is greater. And Tesla may refuse to sell you any future vehicles. So it kind of looks like they're doing everything that they can to make sure that people don't go sell their Cybertrucks after they have taken delivery for it. We have seen a few of these Cybertrucks sell for over 200,000 at auctions. Ford has even done something um, to this since when the F-150 Lightning came out, but that was more to prevent dealers from selling it at a gross profit when they were doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Tesla's a little bit unique because they do a direct to customer model and they don't have dealerships, and they are really taking it to the customer when it comes to enforcing these clauses. So I wanted to get your thoughts. What do you think of this clause? Do you think it's something good that Tesla is doing? Or do you think it's Tesla is really overstepping and they should just allow their customers to do whatever they want with their property that they've purchased?
Oh man, this is tough. I think it's fair for Tesla to do this in their purchase agreement. I think that's totally fair. If you buy a Cybertruck, you have to agree to, the purchase agreement, and so they can put whatever they want in the purchase agreement. And if the consumer doesn't like it, they don't have to buy. Um, I do think it's a little harsh. I do think it's a little harsh. If the market is going to pay more than the MSRP for the truck, then I think the markets speak for themselves. And I also I'm not a big fan of scalpers, but at the same time, it's kind of like they put their work in to do the research, to win the race, to build bots, to get the reservations. I don't know how you want to describe it, but like they aren't just doing it out of thin air. Like they're beating other people to these Tesla trucks some way somehow. Um, and I think that their work, there is a reward for their intelligence and strategy and work, whether I like it or not.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm kind of split on this. I'm a little surprised that Elon is doing it because I feel like Elon is more about freedom and like the right for people to have the freedom to do what they want. Um, but I also don't blame Tesla because they want to have fair market for everyone to buy a Tesla truck at a reasonable and fair price. My question is like if I buy a Tesla Cybertruck and let's say like I just don't like it, then I have to inform Tesla that I'm going to sell my truck and they have the option to buy it back before the market does.
Mhm.
But I don't think that's very fair because if I know my truck is in high demand and I can get more money for it, I don't know. That's frustrating to me. There's a massive assumption by Tesla assuming that those who sell the truck within that time frame, what was that time frame? A year?
Yeah, 1 year from the time of
Yeah.
delivery.
There's a massive assumption that if you want to sell your Tesla truck within the year, that you're selling it for profit.
Yeah.
Um, or you're selling it to like flip the Cybertruck. And I just don't think that's the case. I just don't think that's very fair.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I mean, there might be
maybe
cases that,
sorry, I was just gonna say maybe I'm leaning against this. I mean, they have every right to put that in the purchase agreement, but I don't really like it.
yeah. I mean, like, I'm kind of split on this too. I mean, I don't have a Cybertruck, so I could really care less what happens to other Cybertruck owners, but legitimately there may be some people that this is just not a good fit as a vehicle. Um I mean, I know that there were this is a very common practice with other companies. Like Porsche does this with their vehicles. Um, Ford did this with their Ford GT that they only made a very small handful of those, and they were selling
Mm,
for 500,000. And I think there was a story where John Cena was going to purchase one of these Ford GTs, and um, upon taking delivery, he didn't even fit in the vehicle, and so had to sell it. But then this clause was enforced, and he was unable to, or um, something like that. And so, like for those instances where like um, someone's just selling it just because they don't like it or it doesn't work for their situation. I don't think they should need to be punished because I think the intent of this is to punish people that are reselling it for a profit.
yeah.
Just as um, purely for an intent to get that profit, um, get all the incentives that they can from it, and then just sell it. So, yeah, with this, it seems a little harsher than it needs to be for certain situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they come down pretty hard. So, but hey, they do whatever they want. It's their business, right?
Yeah, I mean, people have freedom to contract. So,
Yeah.
um, Tesla is really utilizing that freedom to contract at this moment. So,
Yep. And I respect overall, right?
mhm.
I appreciate that they're trying to protect consumers and their ability to buy a vehicle at fair market value. So,
Yeah. So, guess all those people that are trying to sell and attempting to sell, you have been warned.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Be careful.
Yeah. They informed you thusly.
That's right. Exactly. Um, so next on the docket, speaking of selling things, Google did not do a good job in selling their new AI, Gemini, which was formerly known as Bard. Um, and the reason why they didn't do a good job is because the prompts always produce very biased results. Is pretty ridiculous, actually. And it was embarrassing, really embarrassing, in my opinion. So Google apologized. They say they apologized for missing the mark after Gemini generated racially diverse Nazis. That is one example of where they missed the mark.
Yeah.
So,
That's
um,
just one.
yeah, essentially, people prompted like, show me a photo or depict an image of a Nazi, and it was like a black Nazi. And there are a lot of examples of this where Gemini was offering heavy inaccuracies, very heavy inaccuracies, especially in historical image depictions. Um, and Google says we are aware that Gemini is offering inaccuracies in some historical image generation depictions. We're working to improve these kinds of depictions immediately. Gemini's AI image generation does generate a wide range of people. And that's generally a good thing because people around the world use it, but it's missing the mark here. Yeah, you could say it's missing the mark. Um, People would like prompt to say, or would prompt the Gemini, like, show me Norwegian individuals, and like none of them would be Caucasian or white. And this is like Norway, right?
Hmm.
Or like Irish, or like the founding fathers of America. And it's pretty embarrassing, like I said, what they're doing. So generate, like, there's a prompt that says generate a picture of a U.S. senator from the 1800s, and it's like a black woman. This is the 1800s, an Asian man, another black woman, and a Native American like chiefess or chieftain, and definitely not like your 1800s U.S. senator. Anyway, very embarrassing, very inaccurate. You could tell that it was very skewed and biased. There was another, besides this article, there was another example of people prompting Gemini to create poems for politicians, and it would create poems for Democratic politicians, but not Republican politicians. It was, and the reasoning behind it was it would not support, uh I can't remember the exact phrasing, but essentially it was alluding to that the Republican politicians had inaccurate and false policies that were not true, and Gemini doesn't support that. um it was very shocking, but very embarrassing for Gemini. um I just think it goes to show what's happening at Google and who's putting the code in Gemini and manipulating it, right? And their opinions on things. But I wanted to get your thoughts about this. Do you think this was like a genuine error? Do you think that they like maybe drug the woke bar or the diversity bar too far to one side? Or like, what do you think here?
I don't think this was an accident. I think I think they drug the woke bar as far as it could go. And I'm curious if Google has a chief diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh yeah, DEI. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm kind of the opinion that every company that employs like a chief equity, diversity, inclusion officer at some extent is is gonna go under because nothing good comes out of it because I I think it goes too far too far over and beyond what the original intent of that was. And I think that's what this was here. It was an overcompensation. Um like I can get at what the intent may have been, but the
Yeah.
fact that it was coded in such a way that it blatantly um, made so many inaccuracies that were just wrong shows that there was way too much focus on that than what there needs to be.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The overcompensation, I think that's the key word that you used. Overcompensation. I'm with you there. I think it's fair to show representation and to show like the world is diverse, right? America is a really good example. It's a melting pot of people, of cultures, of religions, of identities, whatever idea you have. America has some aspect of that. I feel like, um, and I can understand why Google wants to represent that. That's fair, but overcompensation, I think, is the exact word that describes this. So,
Yeah. And Google does have a chief diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. So,
we're not surprised.
yep.
Not surprised. Do you think this hurts their reputation on their potential other brands and tools, resources that users utilize on a regular basis? For
I
example, Google search.
Yeah, I think it does. I think because of this, they have lost the AI race.
Mm.
Like, um, I don't think there's going to be any way that you can recover for this.
Yeah, like people they just lost trust in Gemini.
Yeah,
Like everyone's gonna have in the back of their mind, like, is this really accurate or is this skewed?
yeah. I mean, because otherwise, um, you've got African American founding fathers.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, and this actually kind of plays into the TikTok ban where I think there's a relationship between America, big tech, and government. We've seen that relationship in the past been exposed. And I also feel like people are leaving Google not just for incidents like this, but because in the past we've seen manipulation and people are going to TikTok for like search results and to search things instead of Googling them. And I think there's a lot of heavy influence. This is my tinfoil hat. Maybe there's some heavy influence from big tech like Google saying, hey, we're losing users and we're losing search results or searches on our platform because people are going to this other platform that maybe people trust more, even though it's not American.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's,
I
yeah, go
think
ahead.
Google's like class of product offerings has gone downhill significantly in the last few years. I mean, like if you take a look at just Google search itself, I mean now like your top searches are ads, uh, Reddit, stuff that's like not actual content that you're searching for. And it makes it really hard to actually search for something on Google than it needs to be or than it used to be. And
Yeah, I
so
agree. Yeah.
I think like this is just a culmination of their search engine getting worse, their products um, getting worse. And so, yeah, I don't think this isn't good for Google, and I don't, and definitely it is not going to help them in their AI race.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, the results are becoming less mm, not maybe not accurate, but less relevant. And it just takes a little bit more time to find what you're looking for. And so people are just not going to those resources um, to search it. I also kind of found that on YouTube. Like sometimes on YouTube, I'll search for something and it's not immediate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, what are they? What algorithm are they using to pull the results for what I searched for? Because sometimes it's way off base. And I just looked up an article, and this is from last year, July, but people are talking about how Google still holds like 90% of the search engine, but a lot of people just don't use it anymore, especially the next generation. Um, so for like 40% of Gen Z prefer to search for things not on Google,
Interesting.
and they use other platforms like tweets and posts on X and TikTok, um, and a few other platforms. But it's really interesting to see that trend. And when Google does stuff like this with Gemini, it in my opinion hurts their case even more.
Hmm.
People just kind of are starting to see what it's for, what it really is. It's like you guys are. I don't really feel like they're there to really provide the true information for the people anymore.
Yeah.
They're a business and they're starting to show the true colors as we're a money making business, and that's what we are prioritizing now.
Yeah. I agree. Think this is, I think Microsoft is counting on this, and now they're just going to push Bing onto everybody. We might need to go to Bing, and
Oh man.
that'll be a sad
Oh
day.
man. That will be a sad day indeed. It's like, oh yeah, I'm on Bing. I'm Binging it.
Yeah, that's not a verb.
Bing baby. I can just picture myself typing in like my search and then smashing the enter button and being like, Bing baby.
Uh,
Bing me. Bing
yep,
me.
being
Bing
me.
me, baby. Yeah, I don't know. Bing is probably never gonna be top dog.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So,
Microsoft.
but you never know.
Yeah,
Yes,
true. You never know. I can be wrong
time
there.
time will tell.
Time will tell. Correct.
Just
So
like time will tell whether you all like and subscribe this video. So we want to say thanks for sticking with us and for all of the people supporting our channel. Give us a thumbs up if you really liked it. That really helps out our channel and our shows. If you didn't like it, that other button seems to work all right too. Make sure you send it to somebody you dislike. They could use this video. Um, as always, ring-a-ling that ding-a-ling button so you never miss any content as it's posted on the channel. Until next time, have a great evening, stay classy, and we'll catch you in the next one.
peace.